That's not good. This thing is so cooked. At this point, I've thrown everything I could think of at this car. We've tried every fix. We've run every single textbook diagnostic test, and, well, it's still overheating. However, in the last video, when we worked on the car, you all pointed to one major thing that I've done wrong this entire time, and the more I think about it, the more I think you guys might be onto something. Shortly after this car showed up from the auction, it threw an engine temperature warning. And since I don't exactly trust BMWs, I went straight for a block test to see if we were inheriting someone else's problems. Surprisingly, everything checked out fine. But when we pulled the thermostat, we found it broken into a bunch of pieces, thanks to its partial plastic construction.
What the? Oh my God, this thermostat's cooked. Look at this thing. Holy jeez, look at that thermostat. Came out in a million pieces. Here's our housing, what's left of everything, and look, this is why there's no flow. This thermostat broke and it's completely blocking the flow of anything happening.
This is almost too perfect of a problem. It's obvious that this was the reason the car was overheating, but who knows how long it's been driven like this. So we removed the thermostat completely to let the system run wide open, and we fired the car up and it ran beautifully. For several minutes we had full power. It felt downright fast and the temperatures stayed right where they should.
After a pretty tough test drive, look at this. We're at 80 degrees Celsius. This is beautiful. Our head gasket is good. And I am shocked.
That enthusiasm was very short-lived because the next time I went to drive this car, just a day or two later, it overheated and it did so almost instantly. And I've been trying to understand why this happened. A perfect drive one day, the next, it overheats again. And after reviewing the footage over and over again, I saw something that might have made a difference, and I think it's worth mentioning, and that's that on the first successful test drive, this car did have some state of charge in its hybrid battery. The second that battery charge goes down to zero, it's a complete different drive. And that's why the car not only felt so good during that first test drive, it likely didn't overheat because it's the torque that you're getting from that electric motor and battery combo that's really filling in the gaps and making this thing feel like a supercar. When we got done with that test drive, we had pretty much depleted all of this car's hybrid battery, and when that engine is responsible for 100% of this car's load, well, of course it's going to have to work harder, and therefore it overheats. Even though we got it cheap, and I am ready to let it go even cheaper, I can think of one other auction car I bought in recent memory that will be an even bigger loser than this i8, and it was this crash-totaled Ferrari 599. Even though it still looks like a pile of scrap, it looked even worse than that at one point. It's obvious picking this car wasn't such a great idea. However, picking Baker Mayfield to pass more than 1.5 touchdowns this weekend seems like a much more solid call. I've also got Justin Herbert with over 179.5 passing yards, and of course I couldn't pass up the max discount on Dak Prescott with more than half a passing yard, and that rounds out my Prize Picks lineup. Prize Picks is the best way to get closer to your favorite sports. Pick more or less on player stats, and the more you pick right, the more potential you have to cash in. And one of my favorite things with Prize Picks is that they don't always limit you to a single player's stat. In a lot of cases, they'll offer you a bunch of different options. More flexibility for me has ultimately led to more winning. And since Prize Picks offers injury reboots, if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, it won't be counted as a loss. So get in the game and make some picks. I'm telling you, you're going to have a lot of fun as long as you don't pick an old junk Ferrari. Just hit the link in the description box. Download the Prize Picks app, and during sign up, make sure you use code SAMCRAC. That's going to get you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. It's that easy. Hit the link in the description box, download the Prize Picks app, tell them Samcrac when you're signing up, and that's going to get you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup over at Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now, I've spent weeks trying to fix this car, but the entire time we've been doing the same repetitive tasks. Things like vacuum filling the car, block testing it, and at one point, we even went through the hassle of pulling the water pump, and it was an absolutely nightmarish job just to get it out to find absolutely nothing wrong with it. But through all of this, there's been one consistent theme in the comment section, and that's that you've taken issue with us running this car without a thermostat. Now, you guys left several different theories as to why why running this car without a thermostat just won't work. But there were two that were echoed, and I want to focus on those. The first one was that since there's no thermostat, the rate at which the coolant is traveling through the engine is much faster, and so it can't adequately cool things. And well, in my opinion, that's just a bunch of nonsense. By removing the thermostat, we're not changing the flow rate of the coolant through the cooling system. We're simply just taking the restriction out that lets it flow to the engine, and it's going there all the time. But the second idea, one that I think has a lot more merit, is the idea that since it's an electronically controlled thermostat, the way it opens can actually divert where the coolant is going. And if we don't have the thermostat installed, well then the coolant won't necessarily travel to the right places at the right time, and will just take the path of least resistance. We know the radiator's in the front of the car, the engine's in the back of the car along with the thermostat. So if it's absent, well basically that hot coolant is just recirculating in the engine over and over and over again, instead of traveling back to the front of the car where it's going to shed its heat, then return to the engine cooler to cool it down. When I first read this, I thought you guys were giving a little too much credit to BMW's engineers. The way I understand the electronic thermostat here is that the probe inside the housing, well that's heating up, and it gives the engine computer the ability to basically prematurely open that thermostat if it wants it to cool a little bit sooner. And even at other times when that heating probe is no longer activated by the engine management, well, if the water's hot enough, this is still a mechanical thermostat. It still will remain open, basically like us, well, running without one. But if you look inside the housing itself, it does look like there are these little slots, these little channels, and heck, I'm not exactly sure where these all go to. And when you install this thermostat, this is the only car I've ever seen you have to do this, you actually have to clock it the perfect direction. There's a marking on the housing itself, and there's a marking on the plastic on the thermostat. And I think this is because the plate itself is at an angle, the way it sits on the spring here. But in the case that this does end up helping divert coolant to the right areas at the right time, well, hey, maybe this is one of those things that the engineers figured out yet, and well, I clearly haven't. So over an entire day, we replaced the water pump with a new spare I had from my old car. And the tricky part here, besides the lack of any room, is the tensioner, which has two pulleys on it. It's always keeping some sort of constant tension on the belt, even in its relieved position. So it took two of us, one person to hold things in the right place and the other to replace each bolt. To me, this is the definition of play a stupid game and win a stupid prize. But our real prize here was dropping the car back down on the ground after a long several hours of work and getting ready to finally test things out with our thermostat reinstalled. First off, I did the BMW required bleed procedure using my diagnostic tool, and let me just save you the 12 minutes of footage I have here and let you know that it failed. 12 minutes into the 20-minute procedure, it shut the engine off for too high of temps. And one other side note here, I did have the hybrid system plugged in so that we could get this car to move around while the engine was disassembled, and so there is a bit of hybrid battery power left. So I figured instead of trying to idle the car and do this computer bleed procedure, let's actually take it on a drive like we did the one time it worked and see if we can't get it to finally cooperate. All right, here we go. Kicking into sport mode, still got the heater on. And let's watch those temps. Wow, they're really jumping up now. Let's see here. Just one little jaunt down the driveway, but we are falling. Look at that. This car is so weird. It's so strange. So right now I'm not giving it a lot of gas. I'm just moving and we're creeping. We're creeping good. I'm not liking it. And then when I start to slow down, is this not the most finicky cooling system anybody's ever seen? It's just like toying with us now. It's getting right close to that danger zone, and then
it starts to fall a little bit. At least it's fallen a little bit. Let's give it a shot down the driveway again. Here we go. Another thing that seems to defy logic about this car, what's the potential that it just needs to continue to be vacuumed over and over again, make sure every tiny little air pocket is out? Because it's wanting to fall, then it just creeps back up. Just sitting, look. We're at 116 right now. We were at 120. It's creeping right back up now at idle though. We'll go ahead, we'll put it in park, we'll shut it down. Of course, it's going to go up a little bit. Well, the fans and stuff aren't moving, but what I want to see is whether our hoses are warming up or not. Our hose is warming up. Yeah, they are warming up. This hose has solid pressure, and it's actually getting warm. You know, I think we're kind of nearing the end of any other useful tests on this car. There's only one thing I can think of that we didn't do yet. And funny enough, it's one of the first things I did on the last i8 we had, and that's scoping the cylinders. The reason why I think it's probably a waste of our time is because on that old car, since we had the warped cylinder head, basically all the cylinders were affected just a tiny, tiny amount. So they all looked relatively the same. They all had a bit of carbon buildup. I mean, when I say that these cars put out like no signs of head gasket problems, you know, things like coolant in the oil in the coolant, water or water vapors out of your exhaust pipes. It's just the strange nature of this specific car that doesn't have it do any of those things. So even though, again, it's probably going to be a time waste, let's pull those plugs. Let's look in the cylinders and just see if there's anything out of the ordinary. The good news is it's really easy to get to all that stuff back there, and they're all right on top of the engine. One. Come on. All right, there's two. And there's the last one. This right here is a thin-walled spark plug socket specifically for BMWs, and I actually got it because of the first i8. But with this tool, it makes it super easy to just crack these plugs loose. And then we can just spin them by hand. And then we can just pull the plugs out. The magnet here. Now, ooh, they're a little warm from me running it earlier. This all looks relatively normal. It's not wet or anything. That's another thing we might see if there was coolant in the combustion chamber. Let's see if we can get this one out. Okay, so this is our third one here. Again, looks completely normal. And our last one looks exactly the same to the other two. When I dropped this scope into the first cylinder, I noticed something off immediately. Look at part of the piston, it's slick, almost like there's oil on it. But if it were oil, shouldn't we have seen signs of that on the spark plug? And if it were just water, I figured it would have burned off by now since the engine's still warm. It's all so strange, and to make things even more confusing, the lens on the scope started fogging up. So to see if I could catch this in real time, I went and pressurized the cooling system with a hand pump, and I switched over to my different scope. Basically, this pump is mimicking the amount of pressure the cooling system would be under with the car running, and if there is a breach in the head gasket or warped cylinder head, we might be able to see drips of water coming in. And over several minutes, I really couldn't see much, but with a very insidious cylinder head or head gasket issue, it could take a very long time to see any moisture show up here. I think it's also worth mentioning, with the different scope, this cylinder looks shiny and reflective all over, more uniform than it did with the first scope. And I know I'm overthinking this at this point, but when we compare it to the second cylinder over, you could see it looks completely different. It's uniform, it's clean, it's dry, and even though it almost looks suspiciously too clean, which can be a sign of a head gasket issue, it's an inconsistency, and that is important. Now, for the last piston of the bunch, it was sitting a bit higher, so it was harder to see, but overall it matched the condition of the second one. Even though the scope camera footage is hard to describe, the inconsistencies between cylinders is the most concrete evidence we have thus far to point to a catastrophic failure in the top end of this engine. We've probably got a warped cylinder head, or we could have a breach in the head gasket, or both. Let me know if you agree down in the comments. But when we think back to our old i8, that
that was more of a warped cylinder head issue, even though we went and kind of replaced everything along the way, and we got the head skimmed to make sure it was flush again. When you mount the top end of the engine to the bottom end, everything has to be flat, it has to be clean, and of course the head gasket seals everything. The second your head turns into a banana, well, that's what's allowing all of those exhaust gases to make their way into the cooling system, and they're pushing that coolant out of the way instead of allowing it to adequately cool the block. Thus, that's why we're overheating. But one big difference we have between the old i8 and this i8 is that this car is already on its second engine with a replaced head gasket. So someone has very well likely skimmed this head once already. You can't just continue to skim layers off the head without having valve clearance issues. There's not a chance I'll drop the engine in this car. It's not worth your time or mine to do this job that I've already lived through once. However, there is one more potential solution that is a lot easier and cheaper. And well, I hope you'll stick around to see if it works.